Welcome back, everyone, to Quick Picks. I'm Adam Seltzer alongside Chris Guest for week 2. And Chris, hopefully week 2 goes better than week 1 for me, at least.
Yeah, man, working the kinks out a little bit for everybody. Players on the field and us picking the winners on the field, man. It's the early part of the season, but we'll get better. We'll be all right.
For those of you who didn't see the week 1 video, Chris went 2-3 with his picks, but he hit on his 2-unit play, so we'll give him a record of 3-3. Do you want to touch on any of those games that were kind of a heart teaser for you?
I mean, I actually, believe it or not, I went back and forth on that Steelers-Bengals game. I ended up picking the Bengals with the favorite 6.5-point line just because I think it was, last year they outscored the Steelers like a crazy deficit. I think like 30-something points in total. So I just figured I'd go with the benefit of the doubt for them. Eagles just, they had it and they just let the backdoor cover, I guess, come in for the Lions. So it is what it is. It happens. Other than that, I mean, Broncos crapped the bed. They should have blew out the Seahawks. That was emotional night, the whole thing. Season opener, Russell Wilson coming back home. So I probably should have known better than to pick that game, to be honest with you. But like I said, we'll get better as the year goes on. I'm not sweating it.
Yep. So Chris goes 3-3. I go 1-5. If you 1-4 plus I lose my 2-unit to go to 1-5. Carolina, you get burned on a 58-yard field goal at the buzzer. That always stings the soul a little bit.
By a rookie kicker, nonetheless.
By a rookie kicker. Jaguars, your boy Carson Wentz. Such a Wentz move. It's 3rd and 8. Washington needs a field goal to win the game. Jacksonville will cover. And Wentz throws a Hail Mary up into the end zone that could have easily been intercepted. Dotson catches it. Washington covers. 2 horrible picks from me with the Cowboys and the Broncos, like you mentioned. Just bad picks I'll give on those 2. And then my only winner, at least it was an easy one, Minnesota from beginning to end, took it to the Packers. So
that's your squad. I think if that Broncos Seahawks game happened in week 8, I think we would have won that. But it happened week 1 and we just bit the bait. So.
Yeah, I mean, road favorite on Monday night, never a good way to start. But before we jump into our week 2 picks, I do want to plug the podcast for those of you just listening on YouTube. We are the 3 in the Keystone podcast. Each week, Chris and I detail 3 significant segments in the sports world, and we go pretty in depth on it. Check us out on Apple Podcast. Check us out on Spotify. Again, it's 3 in the Keystone with the blue avatar of the state of Pennsylvania. Also on Twitter at 3, the number 3, K Podcast. Again, the number 3, K Podcast. Without further ado, Chris, I actually have one more thing before we do it. We do have a third party jumping into the picks tonight. We're going to call him the masked man, as he's not going to be on video, but he's going to send his picks in weekly. And for those of you who think it's Al Ryan from the pod, it's actually not, but we're going to leave his name unknown, but we'll give his picks at the end.
We never know who it is. You never know.
We never know unless he's the winner. We'll find out. So, Chris, you got a 2-game lead on me right now. Let's get into week 2. You started last week, so I will start this week.
Okay.
My first pick, I'm going back to the well for a team that burned me last week. I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers plus 1.5 at the New York Giants. Actually was somewhat impressed with the Giants last week. They were a feisty group, but I thought Carolina really found its way in the second half against Cleveland. I thought they looked a lot better. Coach Rule has said that he wants to get the ball in McCaffrey's hands more this week, which would be a good idea for him. Again, not sure how good the Titans are, but I'm going to take the Panthers and what I think is the better team and the points in New York.
Yeah, I mean, like Al said last week with the Titans, and we've talked about it both before too. Like, we don't really know what they are or who they are, I should say. So they showed themselves in a negative light last week, and we'll get to that later on in the podcast this week. But Giants coach there, wow. How about that?
We'll talk about that on the pod. If you're interested in that, we'll talk about that on the pod.
A little tease, they call it the business.
Yeah. Go ahead. Hit me with your first pick.
All right. So, like I said, the Seahawks-Broncos game, if it was later on in the year, we probably would have hit that one with the Denver, the -6.5. nonetheless, I did hit on the Bears on the road. I mean, I'm sorry, at home as dogs against the 49ers. And I'm turning the corner here with Seattle. I'm going to take them plus 8.5 against the 49ers. I'm not big on the 49ers this year. I think they're a 500 team. I know that there's a lot of people that think that they will be a Super Bowl contender. I don't see it. Didn't see from the jump. Still don't see it. 8.5 is a good amount of points for the beginning of the year, especially against a quarterback that's only in his fifth career start. Give me Seattle plus 8.5.
More on that game to come later. All right, my second pick. I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins plus 3.5 against the Baltimore Ravens. I think this Miami team is tough, especially defensively. Wasn't really impressed with what the Ravens did last week. Their backfield's a little bit of a mess. J.K. Dobbins may play this week, but who knows how many snaps he's going to get. Don't like their receiving crew that they have out there. I think Miami's tough, and Ravens lost Kyle Fuller in the secondary, and those two receivers in Miami are tough to match up with. I see this being a low-scoring, hard-fought game, at which point I'll take the 3.5. Wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore eked it out with the win, but I think I'll take Miami in the points.
Okay. I don't know if I disagree with that. I can see that.
You're a Ravens homer, though.
I know, but sometimes it was a blog game last week with the Jets, so who knows? I don't really know. That'll be a good test for both teams, so we'll see. For me, I want to go back to Detroit. Actually, maybe I'm going to stay in Detroit since the Eagles just left there. Commanders coming in. Lions are favored in this game, minus 1.5. We all know I'm not a Wentz fan. Still not a Wentz fan. Detroit showed me something I mentioned before. I'm going to be rooting for them all year, except for week one. Week one's now over. We got out of there with the W. We escaped. And I'm riding the Lions, minus 1.5 in front of their home fans. They're going to make a big game out of this one. Commanders are not as good as the Eagles, obviously. So I think the Lions overcome that loss first week, and they get on the winning column this week. I think I like them outright. Minus 1.5. Well,
obviously you like them outright.
Yeah, I know. I just caught that. Yeah. I'm so used to them being underdogs.
That's fair. That is fair.
So yeah, the Lions minus 1.5.
So my third pick is also the Lions minus 1.5.
Okay.
So we're on the same page there. I had Jacksonville over Washington last week. I thought Jacksonville outplayed them, with the exception of, some bad Jacksonville-like mistakes. Travis Etienne drops a wide open touchdown in the first half. Lawrence overthrows Etienne wide open in the first quarter. They miss a field goal, all that in the first half, and they still were in a position to cover the spread. Was somewhat impressed with Detroit last week, especially on the line. I think Swift is a stud. So for all those things, I think the Lions win this game outright as well. So give me Detroit minus 1.5.
Okay. Yeah. So we're together on that one.
Yep.
Where are we going? Pittsburgh. I know they had a tough injury with Watt going out. I did see the play when it actually happened, and I did tell my wife, I think he just mouthed, I can kind of read his lips, said something about his pec. So,
yeah, you could see it.
Yeah. Fortunately for them, though, it wasn't a complete tear. So I think they said the ligament was still intact, which is good. So he'll be back soon. But in the meantime, Pittsburgh in their opener at home, I like them plus 1.5 against the Patriots. Patriots is like a blah team. They're just,
yeah, they're
I think the whole Patriots allure is over with now. Finally, it only took us a generation, but I think it's back down to earth. I think Pittsburgh wins plus 1.5.
I'll do you a favor. I'll make it 2.5 as the active lines as we take here on Thursday night.
All right, so I'll take that even better.
There you go. All right, my fourth pick. This is the one I feel a little uncomfortable with. So it'd be my weakest of the 5 plays. I'm gonna take the Arizona Cardinals plus 5.5 against the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm not a Cardinals fan. We talked about it in our NFC West preview. They obviously did nothing to impress last week, but it was the Chiefs, and the Chiefs came out like a ball of fire, and I think kind of wiped Arizona off the earth early. A lot of people talk about week 2 overreactions. I think if this was a week 1 game, it's probably Arizona plus 3.5. So now I'm getting 2 extra points just based on the way they played against the Chiefs, who, I wasn't big on them early in the year, but man, did they look good last week.
Mhm.
I didn't love the way Vegas looked, to be honest with you. I thought Carr had a little bit of was force feeding it to Adams, and obviously Adams is great, but I just didn't love the way that offense clicked, and I think Carr makes mistakes at big points in time. I just think 5.5 points is too much. Again, I probably see Vegas winning the game, but I see the Cardinals hanging around, and it may be one of those back doors that you got experienced last week that ends up taking this. So give me Arizona plus the 5.5.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to go over to New Orleans where the Saints are going to host the Bucks. I'm going to take the Saints plus 2.5. Brady's had a little bit of a bad history playing the Saints, especially in New Orleans. So Saints coming off a nice divisional win last week. Falcons aren't really supposed to be that good at least, but nonetheless, the Saints came back, fought hard, and got the W. So I think they'll be riding that wave a little bit into their home stadium back down in New Orleans against the Tom Brady, the Tampa Bay Tom Brady's at this point in time. I shouldn't say that though, because the Bucks have some weapons. So, but we don't know where Brady's head's at right now either. I wasn't overly impressed with the game that they had against Dallas. So give me Saints plus 2.5.
Yeah, no, they weren't great the other night. That's for
I'm a
sure.
little bit nervous though. I'm a little bit nervous for this game because you never know what. I mean, at this point, Brady could show up as Tom Brady and torch the Saints, but I just feel my gut just tells me New Orleans is going to be in this game.
All right. So that brings us to our 2-unit play, and we're gonna be going against each other this week. So my 2-unit play is the San Francisco 49ers minus 8.5 against the Seattle Seahawks. I faded Seattle last week. Tell you, I watched that game. I was shocked. What do you think? Fishing? Going on a fishing trip?
Biting the bait.
Maybe. But here's where I'm at. I watched that game on Monday night. I was shocked at how much emotion and dislike seemed to be for Russell Wilson from both the fans and the Seahawks players.
That's a disgrace. And we'll get more into that later on in our podcast, but that was a joke to me.
That was an emotional game for Seattle. They're coming a big win. They're coming off a short week. There's a major letdown spot, in my opinion, for a team that's not really good to begin with. Add that to the fact that they lost, what's the safety? Adams, right?
Jamal Adams.
Jamal Adams. He's out for the year. And to be honest with you, if you look at that game Monday night, Denver has the ball. And again, this is all football. Denver has the ball on the goal line early in the third quarter. They stuff Melvin Gordon on the goal line. They have the ball in the fourth quarter, in the goal line later in the fourth quarter. Javonte Williams fumbles the football. If those 2 plays turn into touchdowns, Seattle loses the game by 13 points. Now, again, if ifs and buts, the ball bounces one way or another. I see San Francisco as a team. They had a bad loss last week, but I'm going to give them a pass on the weather. We don't really know who they are. I don't think that's a fair gauge as to what they're doing. They need to respond. I think they come out fired up with a good coach this week, and I think Seattle's just in a major letdown spot. Give me the Niners to win by 2 touchdowns and lay the 8.5. 2-unit play.
2 touchdowns. I just think the Broncos are a better team than the 49ers. So,
and that's fine, but it's about spots, and Seattle was fired up for that game.
Yeah. But they're also not afraid of the 49ers being a division opponent either. So
it's still Geno Smith on the road.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to go, speaking of Jamal Adams, I'm going to go to his former team, the Jets, and I'm going to take the Browns, who are going to host them this week, minus 6.5. Browns minus 6.5 is the pick for me. Jets stink. Flacco's he's done. He's over the hill. He didn't look good at all last week either. Now they're going on the road against a great pass rush. Don't like that chance at all for the Jets in that spot. I know that the Browns are still having Brissett as the quarterback, but listen, Brissett, he's a warrior, man. We've talked about him before previously in our podcast. He is a guy who's not going to, fill up the stat sheet necessarily, but he knows how to win a game. So I think that the Browns cover minus 6.5. I'd see this game like a 27-12 kind of deal.
2 weeks in a row, you're going against the Jets as your best bet. I see a trend there.
Well, 1-0 so far, so I'm going to ride it.
True. All right, let's wrap this up. I'm going to go over the picks again, and then we'll give the picks for the masked man. For you, Seattle plus 8.5, Detroit minus 1.5, Steelers plus 2.5, Saints plus 2.5, and 2-unit play, Browns minus 6.5. For me, Carolina plus 1.5, Miami plus 3.5, Detroit minus 1.5, Arizona plus 5.5, and a 2-unit play on the Niners minus 8.5. And for the mystery masked man, he's going against you in a couple. He's going head to head with you here.
All right, come
He's
get it.
on and me. He's on the Washington Commanders plus 1.5. He's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers minus 2.5. He's also on the Arizona Cardinals, as I am, plus 5.5. He's going a twist on us here. He's going over 50.5 for the Eagles and the Vikings.
Well, now hold on a minute, because are we doing over unders?
I think spreads and over unders are good. No like player props or anything like that.
All right, I didn't even know over unders were on the tables. I thought we were just going to go hit in matchups.
No, we go over unders.
Okay,
That's
all right.
part of it as well.
All
So
right.
and his 2-unit pick is going to be Cincinnati minus 7.5 against the Dallas Cowboys.
I thought about that one.
Yeah, I thought about that one as well. So look, we're going to look to improve. It's going to be hard for me to backtrack, but it's still possible. So anything can happen. But any final words before we go into week 2?
2 things for my own psyche, I guess. Against my wife this week, I did go 9-7 in the game, so I was my percentage was a little bit better than the 2 and 3 that we showed for the show.
Well, how did she do? 10-6?
No, no, she actually took the L this week, but she's pretty good though historically. She actually is good with this. The other thing too is just real quick. Week 2 games stink. This slate of games, in my opinion, is not a strong slate of games this week. So I don't know if that's on purpose to kind of like ease people down a little bit after week 1's hype matches that we had, but I'm not really excited about these matchups. We'll see how it plays out. It's still football. It's still the NFL. So
we got a good one tonight.
Oh, tonight, absolutely, yeah, definitely.
All right, and again, everybody else, give our podcast a download. We go a lot more in depth on a lot of sports. Tonight's going to be football focused. So again, 3 in the Keystone. Give that a download, and we'll be back next week to give our picks. And final words.
And that's it.
All right, we'll catch you all later.